Everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to Achieving Inventory Control, Leveraging Automation for Efficiency and Success. Today's webinar is presented by the Attivo Group. And if there's any questions throughout the session, just drop it in the chat and we'll go through them at the Q&A portion at the end. Okay, so just to give you a little background about the Attivo Group, we work primarily in the manufacturing, distribution, and e-commerce industry. We have 3 offices located in Irvine, California, in Conyers, Georgia, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've been in business for over 3 decades. We were founded in 1993. And one of our specialties is providing financial control around inventory management for business owners and CFOs. Today, our speaker is Robert Clarke, our senior business consultant at Attivo. Robert has 35 years of leadership experience, specializing in process improvements in ERP logistics, manufacturing, and technology. He also has provided leadership in continuous improvement operations, reducing operating costs for businesses, and he's been with us for over 7 years now. I'm going to pass it over to Robert so that he can get us started for today.
Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. Today, we're going to discuss the evolution of inventory control from using card systems such as Kanban to perpetual inventory as contained in most ERP systems today. Next, we'll hit on data collection from batch collected data to real-time transactions. Then we'll discuss some technologies such as barcodes and devices that will support real-time inventory tracking. Lastly, we'll hit on some key components a business that could benefit from such things that we'll discuss today. Let's take a quick look back at how we arrived at the modern forms of inventory control that we have become so accustomed to. Before there were ever computers to assist with inventory control, there were paper-based processes where inventory balances could be kept. These cards were updated by hand, showing any number of transactions that affected the overall inventory balance. The cards were usually kept in the bin with the inventory, so this information was not very helpful for the sales and purchasing people. I've actually visited prospects who are still using card systems, and how they can compete is a mystery to me. In the late 1940s, the Kanban inventory system was developed by Toyota to improve its production management process. Over the years, Kanban has evolved to suit many types of projects and industries. But at its center, Kanban is still an inventory management system based on the visual method of management. A Kanban card is a small card containing information about a specific part used in production. It is a signal that tells someone upstream to move purchase or build more of those components for production. These cards contain the number of units, items, pounds, kits, etc. that need action and where to move them. A computer system manages perpetual inventory. Perpetual inventory methods are increasingly being used in all aspects of inventory management. With perpetual inventory, overages and missing inventory can be kept to a minimum by keeping track of the beginning balances, receipts, shipments, and issues that occur on a day-to-day basis. Perpetual inventory is essential for companies that use basic min-max reordering or more advanced planning tools such as material requirements planning, also referred to as MRP. These are just some of the few advantages of having a real-time perpetual inventory system. Provides continuous inventory quantity on hand, integrates with other business systems such as e-commerce websites. Sales can provide the key word is accurate shipping information and improve customer service by being more informed of inventory control. Certainly, it helps make purchasing decisions and provides a timely detection of theft and shrinkages. There are many more, but inventory is typically one of the company's largest assets, so it truly deserves to be effectively controlled. Let's talk a little bit about batch versus real-time data entry. Batch processing is processing transactions in a batch or group designated by some period, such as a certain number of minutes or hours. Generally, no user interaction is required once batch processing is underway. Real-time data entry occurs at the very moment the transaction occurs. Real-time data collection means that the perpetual inventory system used by sales, customer service, procurement, and other organizational stakeholders have the advantage of information that reflects every movement of inventory and the most up-to-date inventory balances. Scanning transactions just takes seconds compared to handling paper and keying data in the system. Being able to rely on real-time data changes how information systems are used. If you can't rely on a system for accurate on-hand quantities, you must use what I like to refer to as sneakerware and find the right answer yourself by moving around the warehouse. Certainly one way to get your steps in. Now let's look at some technologies and principles used in barcode scanning systems. First, we'll look at the symbology, which maps the data and the symbols used to represent it, such as in a barcode label. Next, we'll discuss how various data components can be represented in a barcode, such as units of measure and package definitions. Next, we'll look at the Uniform Commercial Code Standard 128 label used in EDI. And lastly, we'll discuss the types of barcode readers that exist today. The barcode that we are all familiar with as consumers is the UPC, which stands for Universal Product Code Identifier. As you can see in this diagram, the UPC barcode is made up of three parts: the company prefix, which is the manufacturer identifier, the actual item code itself, and then a check digit. The check digit validates the first two sections and can identify a good scan from a bad scan. Let's discuss the types of barcodes that exist today. One dimension, or 1D, a barcode reads from left to right and contains one data component, such as an item number. A two-dimensional, or 2D, barcode contains information both horizontally and vertically. Because of this, large amounts of data can be represented. QR codes are another form of 2D barcode. QR stands for quick response and can be decoded quickly. One important feature of a good inventory and warehouse management system is the ability to store and translate different units of measure from the same item. Pack size conversion, normalize quantities and pricing across the enterprise when they're used correctly. For example, you may purchase an item in a carton or even buy the pallet, but you sell them individually. Barcodes can be used to distinguish between these pack definitions, making it really easy to receive an entire case or carton of inventory in a single transaction. In warehousing, it is often necessary to know how many units are on the pallet or on a pallet containing several different items. When the pallet needs to be moved or counted, say for a physical inventory, having a pallet contents label is extremely helpful in identifying the different items and their quantities contained within that pallet. The pallet label, sometimes called a license plate, contains the detail of the pallet. License plating and pallet labels are often associated with outbound shipments, but can be beneficial throughout the supply chain as well. Typically, pallet license plating is displayed on two sides so that it can be visible no matter how that pallet may be positioned in the warehouse or in a truck. The Uniform Commercial Code Standard 128 label, also known as the UCC 128, is a specialized label communicating much information. They are used in EDI transactions to provide information to the receiving party and to help streamline the process. A good example of this is cross-docking information. For example, a truck shipment of products, a truck ships to products to Walmart, might be intended for several stores. The shipment might be made to Walmart main distribution warehouse, and each label would instruct material handlers as to which store the item needs to be shipped to and from what distribution warehouse. Radio frequency identification, or RFID tags, are frequently used for merchandise tracking and theft protection. RFID tags are clearly an advantage and drive efficiency when visibility is required in the supply chain. This is referred to as smart label tracking. The label does the communication. RFID tags are also used on vehicles. For example, many rental cars use RFID tags to track their rental vehicles and automatically check the cars in or out of the lot in real time. Electronic eye technology replaces the need to point a scan gun and pull the trigger. It's a stationary scanner that is used when goods with barcodes move past the electronic eye to record a transaction. And lastly, our integrated scale system can record transactions by communicating weight as a unit of measure, such as the total weight of a carton of finished product. The wireless scanner pictured here is the most versatile option because they are really handheld computers with built-in scanners. Most modern technology uses Wi-Fi to allow these devices to connect to local area networks, although some systems use radio frequency, also referred to as RF technology. The scanners are robust enough on these devices and are designed in such a way to scan barcodes at distances of 30 to 50 feet, which is used to read the labels situated on the top rack in a warehouse, for example. Not all barcode scanners have intelligence built into them. The USB or the Bluetooth scanner is a simple barcode reading device. These devices do not have an operating system or any kind of computer program running on them, so they are used for limited transactions and act more like another input device, like a keyboard. These are less expensive, require a host device like a PC to plug in, are lightweight, and are usually connected via USB or Bluetooth. Let's discuss how these automated systems can improve efficiencies and update information in real time for manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and essentially anyone moving inventory in some kind of way. The first step in the process is to recognize materials as having been received when they first show up, which is typically associated with an order of some kind, most often a purchase order or placed with a supplier. You can see from this slide that most systems perform a significant amount of validation regarding the items that have arrived. Which purchase order and from which vendor did these materials come? Are they correct items? Are they the correct quantities, as an example? There may be rules associated with different items upon receiving transactions, such as whether the item requires inspection or even put away instructions. It is very common for inventory control software or warehouse management systems to have logic built in to instruct the operator on what to do with the materials once they have been received. For example, the PO receiving transaction often results in the materials being recorded as on hand and in a generic bin called received or just doc. The next logical thing to do is to put the goods away, and the system often has the logic to instruct the material handlers where to move the goods. The most common types of instruction for goods put away are moving the goods into either an inspection location, a directed location, which means that the software tells you where to put it, or wherever the heck the product might fit in your warehouse, in which case you record the location you put it in. Back to some cross-docking. I had mentioned cross-docking earlier. Cross-docking is a shipping method that transfers goods from one transportation mode, in this case an inbound, to another mode, outbound, and to get them directly from the source to their destination. Cross-docking is widely used in freight transportation because it helps reduce cost and storage space, among other benefits. The issue transaction removes inventory from the quantity on hand balance. It could be for something intended, such as supplying a production order of raw material, or something unplanned, such as scrap transaction to warehouse damage. Inventory counting is a vital process that allows businesses to manage their inventory accurately and efficiently. This process reconciles any discrepancies between inventory records so that companies can ensure that their inventory levels are accurate and current. This helps prevent overstocking, stockouts, and other inventory-related issues that might harm a company's bottom line. There are two types of cycle counting. There are two types of counting: cycle counting and physical count. Physical counting is when the entire company shuts down when the counting and posting occurs. I've seen this process last a few days. It's not pretty. Cycle counting is a process of regularly counting a small subset of inventory by freezing your inventory without stopping day-to-day processes. The word freezing your inventory means you are taking a snapshot in time of your inventory that you are doing a count against. Because we are using a perpetual inventory control system, it is smart enough to account for inventory transactions that might have occurred along the way. Obviously, cycle counting is the way to go. Pick, pack, and ship. You're an inventory picker. You have a scanner and an order. The pick list comes down to the warehouse. The pick list has the item, the quantity, and the location. Because you have a scanner, it can be paperless. So the pick list can appear on the screen and show you what you need to pick and where to find it. You might find the first item on the list in aisle 1, shelf 13, or in row 15 on shelf 2, etc. When you go to the inventory location, you use the scanner to scan the barcode on the shelf, which confirms that you've gone to the right place. You also scan the item to confirm that you have the right item. The scanner then moves on to the next item on the list, and you repeat the process until you complete the picking process entirely. Once picked, everything can be packed in a carton or a container of some sort. Barcode labels can be printed that identify the contents of the carton or containers being used. Photos can be taken and stored. Next, shipping documents can be printed automatically. As companies grow and expand, it's common that they need to store inventory at multiple geographical locations based on proximity to the customers or due to capacity limitations. When the inventory must be moved from one warehouse location to another, there is a period where the inventory is in neither location. It's in transit. Automating the movement of inventory from one location to in transit to another location is critical to efficient warehouse management. Well, now it's time for the case study. Southwind Food is a U.S.-owned and operated company that imports the finest seafood from around the world using enterprise resource planning systems. We also refer to that as ERP. And warehouse management systems, also referred to as WMS. So what's the problem? Southwind Foods recognized that they were facing the following challenges. Number one, lengthy process management was putting their highly perishable inventory at risk. And number two, was limiting their potential to maximize their frozen storage facilities. They needed their system to know in real time exactly where everything was located to support first in, first out, also referred to as FIFO, rotation, shelf life, country of origin, and other critical information. They also wanted advanced warehouse management system within their ERP, high-speed Wi-Fi in the facility, and barcode scanners that could operate in sub-zero temperatures. The solution: Southwind Foods implemented a customized warehouse management system to handle put away, pallet management, order picking, all this was tailored to their specific requirements. They upgraded their wireless infrastructure and found handheld scanners that would operate at -10 degrees Fahrenheit, perfectly suited for their frozen storage facility needs. The result? Southwind Foods benefited tremendously from this continuous improvement initiative. Don Sutherland, then the CFO of Southwind Foods, stated, and I quote, "This custom-tailored system is now the backbone of our company's operations. It is extremely efficient and accurate, and we rely on it to support the high volume of products we handle daily. It keeps us totally compliant with all the regulatory and customer requirements that we need to deal with, and has helped us keep our costs as low as possible." We covered a pretty wide survey of elements and how automation can be leveraged to achieve accurate and real-time inventory control, as we discussed. So we discussed card systems to perpetual inventory and their benefits. We discussed batch versus real-time transactions and their benefits. We discussed barcodes and technologies that exist to support real-time inventory, such as hand scanners, RFID, electronic eye and weight systems. And finally, we talked about transactions that can be accomplished, such as PO receipts, inventory transfers, pick, pack, ship, and etc. So why is all of this important? First, just as in Southwind Food case study, we can optimize floor space and lower operating costs. Next, you'll have a better inventory visibility of accurate, real-time inventory levels. This enables a company to more securely estimate supply and avoid back orders, leading to more satisfied customers. Next, we have a more effective labor force. I once had an employee in a warehouse I was implementing WMS in tell me that, quote, "There was no way that I was ever going to take this scan gun away from him," end quote. It was because it was making his life in the warehouse so much more organized and efficient. His quality of life was vastly improved. A WMS optimizes internal operations by its very nature. And this, of course, can then extend optimizations to the border supply chain, from inbound receipts to outbound deliveries. WMS systems are the enabler to leveraging additional automation technologies within a warehouse, such as the use of mobile devices and artificial intelligence, or AI. Lastly, these projects have a very high return on investment. I've seen payback generally occur within 3 to 6 months of time frame for most businesses. That concludes our formal presentation today, and I hope you found it informative. We would love to entertain any questions that you might have. Please use the chat feature to ensure your questions are taken, and I'd be happy to clarify or expand anything that we have discussed today.
Okay, so we have one question in the Q&A. First question is, how does universal barcoding handle when the vendor stock number is different than the customer stock number, or when a customer buys the same product from 2 different vendors, each with different stock numbers?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of times what we'll do there is we'll have a cross-reference table set up so that the system then could pull from, if it scans that one barcode, it could be recognized as either one or the other. So there's ways to handle that. It's a good question. It's not necessarily straightforward, but it is possible, and it's using a cross-reference table lookup.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Next question is, how hard is it to implement a WMS system?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of general. So what I like to do first is get a lay of the land, as you will, if you will. And I start with a business process assessment. And a business process assessment sort of consists of a deep analysis of all aspects of your business. This process then results in an assessment that we can then identify your pain points and your requirements, your specific requirements needed for that implementation. And then we go about making it happen. So that business process assessment basically gives us the roadmap and an implementation plan, and that's how we go about it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Another question is, well, we will be sending out a copy of the question is if we will be sending out a presentation. You'll get a link tomorrow with the entire presentation, or you can just email us at marketing@attivoerp.com and we'll help you with anything else that you might need. Next question is, do you need special printers to print a barcode?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most companies utilize zebra printers, and they're basically a thermal printer for printing barcode. But to start, you don't need a thermal printer. You can actually just use a regular laser or inkjet printer to print out barcodes. And these barcodes are true type fonts. So a true type font is something you can download either free off the internet or with some small fee off the internet, and print them in like Microsoft Word, print them onto a printer, and then test your scan guns using them that way. And it works just like that. Pretty easy.
Got another one. Where do people usually start with a WMS implementation? Is it the receiving department?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I guess it sort of depends, right? When I mentioned that starting off with that business process assessment, that would identify your pain points and where does it make sense for your company. Is it in receiving? Possibly, yes. It makes sense to do something in receiving at the point where inventory is brought into the company. Why is that? Well, the answer to that question would be that then you print out those barcodes as you receive them, right? So as you're printing and as you're receiving goods into your system, you can print out new barcode labels to slap on those as you do the receipts, so that it'll flow through the rest of your inventory control, if that makes sense. But I guess as far as what to implement first, it really depends on your business and what makes the most sense for you. Where's your greatest pain?
They just said, again, none of my inventory is barcoded now. That's why I'm wondering about receiving.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, then it would probably make sense to start with purchasing. And it's as easy as when you print out your purchase order, your purchase order can include barcode labels on it. So as the goods come in and that purchase order is done on a receipt, you can either have the paper or not have the paper. Most people like paper to start. You'll have that printout. You can just scan the paper as the barcode for that line item, and then do the receipt that way. And it's a good way to start the process off. You don't necessarily need labels for that. You can just print out and modify your purchase orders.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Mhm.
Last one. In the pick, pack, and ship section, you said that you can take photos. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So the way that works, and the way I've done implementations in the past, is as the material handlers, the pickers are picking for these orders, they're putting things in packages and containers and things of that nature. That container has an ID number associated to it. The neat thing about pick pack systems and the way it works is that it's all controlled through inventory. So as we're moving things from say a staging location into these boxes for shipment, the system, the ERP system, knows exactly what's going in the box, right? It has a box ID number, right? And we can take pictures of that box and its contents and then associate with that ID number of that container. Therefore, then, if later in the future the customer complains there was damage or something to that effect, we can actually identify specifically what is in that box, whether there's lots, whether there's serial numbers. We have a photo, and everything then is tracked to that nth detail. It makes it very easy to track problems and non-conformance type issues.
Okay, last question. How easy is it to train our employees on the use of scanners? Some of them can barely read or write.
Right. Well, that is a good question. The scan guns themselves are fairly intuitive, and I have come across this in the past where people are not necessarily great readers or writers. Once they learn the system, and learn what they're doing, learn the put away or the receipt. There's only the screens are very small. There's not a lot of information on these screens, and it doesn't change. So it's not like you're reading a paragraph or something, right? It's pretty easy to understand, and after doing it a few times, I think they'll pick it up. I mean, they have always in my in my historical experience. But as I had mentioned, this other guy I had done implementation for, after he learned how easy and these scan guns worked and how better it made his life, he wouldn't give it up. He loved them, and it was very hard to, there's no taking the scan gun off him once you introduce it. So that's just a fact. So I think it'll be a good thing in the end.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Robert, for all of your insights. I'm hopefully everyone gained some valuable insight today. We're going to end this presentation a few minutes early. If you can, please take a moment to fill out our survey in today's webinar. It's in the chat. It'll only take a minute. We would really appreciate your feedback. Rob, do you mind going to the next slide for me?
Oh, sure.
So a recording of this presentation will be going out tomorrow. You can always reach out to us by heading to our website.